Hello everyone, this is Mr. Singh. In this video I'm going to be modeling the natural selection simulator for you. So I know some of you don't have access because of some problems with Java. Java has been sort of falling off as one of the programming languages, and this simulation, although it's really good, it still uses Java. So I'm going to be going back and forth between this and then the actual document itself. So I'm not going to analyze anything, I'm just going to read the question, do what it says, and let you watch the results. So the first question is, what are some variables you have control over in the simulation? So variables are anything you can change. So that would be things on this side, because I can change these options here. I can change these, I can change these, and I will be able to change these later. It's just not on right now because you have to kind of select them here. So take a second, you can pause right here and you could just write down all the things you can possibly change and just, sort of stare at the screen and see what it is you can change and not change. The second question is, what happens to the bunny population if a friend is never added? So here we have one bunny and I'm going to press play. And so this is what will happen if a friend is never added. Okay, so that's the message that pops up there. So I'm going to restart it. And the second question is, what happens if you add a friend? So the second part of that question. So I'm going to add a friend. And then I'm going to let it play. Okay, and that's the message that pops up there. So the bunnies have taken over the world. So the next question is, what happens when you add food as a selection factor? So I'm going to reset this. Reset. So there we go, reset all. I'm going to add a friend because it won't work if you don't, and then I'm going to add food as a selection factor. Okay, and I'll stop it there, so hopefully you can get the pattern from that. You do have the graph to read as well. You can always use that in your answers as well. The next one is, explain how the Arctic and equator environments are different from each other. So you're just looking at the environment. So I'm just going to reset this. I'm going to pause it. So this is the equator environment. So right now what you're looking at, that's the equator environment. And then this is the Arctic environment. So what you're doing here is just explaining what's the difference in the environment. So you're not talking about the bunnies, you're talking about the environment. Okay, moving forward, what is a genetic mutation? So that's just your knowledge. And what are the 3 mutations you can add to your bunny population? So somewhere on the screen you'll see 3 mutations you can add. You're just listing the 3. So for experiment 1, here I'm just going to follow the instructions, and then again you're just going to sort of take notes on what's happening, and then you're answering the question based on this, and then I'll go into experiment 2. So it says, add a friend and a brown fur mutation to the bunny population and let the experiment continue to the conclusion. So I'm just going to reset again. I'll pause for a second. So add a friend and add a brown fur mutation. There it goes, and then hit play. So I will show you, I can sort of click back on this if you want to get more data to see what's happening. And that's the conclusion. So that's the end of that one. Okay, whoops, let's pause this. So the next one says start over, add a brown fur mutation with friend, but then add a selection factor of wolves when your bunnies start to get overpopulated. So I'll let it run a bit and then I'll add the wolves. And it says let the experiment run until you have a clear idea of what is happening with the rabbit and wolf populations. So I'm going to add, what did it say? Wolves. So it said add wolves later. So add a brown fur mutation, click play. Oh, sorry, add a friend. And then wait for some overpopulation, and then I'll add the wolves. As we're watching, the other thing to note is that they do have a legend at the bottom for what all these lines mean, so you can track which one's which as you're going. So I think we'll let it go one more generation. There we go. So let's add the wolves. Okay, so I'll pull this back a bit just if you want some more data. Okay, hopefully at this point you have a good sort of idea of what the trend looks like in this sort of population. So the next one says change the settings so that you still have brown fur mutations, but this time remove the wolves and let the selection factor be food, and then let the experiment run. So I'm going to reset it. I'm going to add a friend. I'm going to add brown fur mutation, and I'm going to let the selection factor be fur. So I'm going to let it start off a bit, and then I'll add in the selection factor in a bit. Okay, so I'll add the food here. Pull this down a bit. Okay, so hopefully at this point you have a good idea of the trend here, and we only have one bunny left, so this won't survive. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of the trend when you just add the food. The last one says reset and change all the settings so that you have a brown fur mutation, but now you're in an Arctic environment, and then use wolves as your selection factor. So I'm going to reset, I'm going to add a friend, I'm going to add a brown fur, but I'm going to change to the Arctic. So I'll let it run for a bit, and then I'll add the wolves in. Okay, so let's put the wolves in. Okay, so at this point, hopefully you can see the trend that's happening in the different bunny populations. So what you're doing is, based on all 4 of those experiments, you're answering the question, does brown fur provide an advantage? And you're considering all the different scenarios, so you're not just saying necessarily yes or no, you're saying here's what happens in this scenario or this one, it's an advantage here, maybe it's not an advantage here. So experiment 2, we're going to do a similar thing here, and then the post-lab analysis, there's no simulation, I'm just going to let you do that. So we're going to add a friend and long teeth mutation, and then let the experiment finish. So we're going to add a friend, and we're going to add long teeth as the mutation. Okay, so that's the conclusion of that. So the next one says start over, add long teeth, but add the wolves as a selection factor when the bunnies start to get overpopulated. So I'll reset this, add a friend, long teeth. So I'll let this go for a bit and then I'll add the wolves. Okay, so I'll add the wolves now. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a good idea of the trend that's happening there. The next one says change the settings so you have long teeth, but remove the wolves and make the selection factor be food. So let's reset this. So I'm going to add a friend, add long teeth, and then I'm going to add food in a couple generations. Okay, so let's put the food in. Okay, so again, hopefully that gives you an idea of the pattern there. And the last one is reset and do long teeth in the Arctic and use wolves as your selection factor. So add a friend, long teeth in the Arctic, and I'll let them go for a bit. I'm actually going to speed this one up just because I'm running out of time on the video, so I'm just jumping ahead a couple generations. I'll add wolves, and then again I'll just jump ahead a couple generations just so I can get the pattern going. Back. There we go. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of the pattern for this one. So let me jump ahead a bit more, and hopefully that gives you everything you need to be able to answer those questions in the investigation. If you do have any questions, please feel free to let me know.